Hello and welcome to Enlightened Empaths, your community for the spiritually awakened, where we discuss, explore, and connect with fellow empaths, healers, intuitives, and seekers. Hello, empaths. We have a great show for you this week and a wonderful guest. Let me introduce him first. His name is Vincent Genna. He's known as the Tell It Like It Is psychic therapist, and he combines his psychic abilities and academic credentials to provide healing for the body, mind, and spirit. With more than 40 years of training, research, and experience in the metaphysical, psychological, and spiritual fields, he helps clients examine the beliefs and leave behind whatever is blocking them. He's a regular guest on several radio and TV shows, including Good Morning America, Coast to Coast, Gaia TV, and hosts his own show called The Genna Effect. He's here with us today to discuss his book, The Secret That's Holding You Back, which offers guidance on how we can tap into our superconscious and soul minds to unlock a realm of infinite new possibilities. And we are all about that on this show. So welcome to the show, Vincent.
Oh, well, thank you, Samantha, for having me. And Denise, it's great to be here. I'm so excited. I appreciate it.
We are too. Before we dive into your newest book, I just want people to kind of get a sense of how you started. I know you were very, very psychic as a young kid, but that must have been hard because that was before a lot of this became normalized. I don't even know if it's still normalized now, but it's getting better.
Really.
What was it like for you?
Well, to tell you the truth, I was not aware of my psychic ability back then. I didn't even know what it was or if I had anything like that. I was not a normal child, that's for sure. I was outgoing. I was talkative. I used to get in trouble in school all the time from talking. I would interject in adult conversations as a little kid so much that my mother used to whack me in the head because she was embarrassed from that. But my uncle used to call me the little professor because I always had something to say. And the funny thing is that it was right, which is one of the reasons why it bothered some of the adults, because this little kid would come up with some saying or some interjection in a conversation they were having. It was like, well, how does he know what he knows? So I didn't know what I knew, quite honestly. And it wasn't until I was 28 years old. Now, I was the picked on one in school. I was completely bullied until I was 17 years old, not only in school, but at home too. Mom and dad were pretty physically and emotionally abusive back then. And the kids in school used to come chasing me almost every single day. And one of the kids was the instigator because he was the very famous comedian in the classes. Everybody loved, the class clown gets all this high rating. But he was also one of the best jocks in the school. So between being a best jock and a class clown, everybody admired Dennis. And so he would just say my name out loud, long and drawn out, Vinny. And that would be the cue for everybody to start picking on me. They would throw things at me, spitballs, hit me, shove me in lockers, push me down, chase me after school, pounce on me if they got me, which they rarely did because I became the fastest runner in the school. And so that's what I began with. And then I was a really great actor as a child, a great actor and a singer. I was Sicilian and I had a big Italian voice, you know what I mean? And so I used to get all these wonderful roles and I started performing and being in chorus and stuff like that. So I used that as my means to survive. That was my resilience, was my talents. Otherwise, I really would have gone down a deep, dark path, which I really was at part way, but then I would get on stage and the applause would keep me going. So from there, as I became older, I decided I was going to be a professional singer, actor, and dancer. I auditioned for the movie Grease, and I wound up landing a part in the movie Grease. So this made me a little famous in my hometown. So now jumping ahead, a couple of years after the movie was released, and it was a big box office hit from the very beginning, was my 10-year high school reunion, and I decided to go to that. because I knew that now I had a chip on both shoulders, not just one. And I was married. I had a 3-year-old child already, and I was felt so successful. And I just went strutting into that reunion, and it was like a Cinderella story. Everybody at the ball just stopped and looked at me and was so thrilled that I showed up. So to them, I was this big star, and the girls hung around me all night long around my table. They wanted to know all about Hollywood. And this guy shouts my name from across the hall when he sees me, and the entire hall freezes because they don't know, wait a minute, is Dennis going to start picking on him or what?
Did
And
he
he
do it
went,
in the slow way?
oh yeah, he went,
Oh,
Vinny. There was 300 people in that pavilion, in that venue, and that's what they hear, and they froze. And he came running across the hall, grabbed me in a bear hug, and wouldn't let me go. And he never said, "I'm sorry," but the hug did. And so from that moment on, I embraced him, and we actually became dear friends. We spent the whole night together. They went out with, some of his friends. He invited my wife and I, you got to come with us. We were there till 6 o'clock in the morning together. From that day on, we were on the phone all the time. He lived in Connecticut. Well, to jump forward, I was having a feeling that something was wrong with this guy's life, because he was the type that you say, "So how are you doing?" And the rest of the conversation was about him, but how successful he was. "Oh my gosh, I'm doing so great in business. I got a promotion. I married my childhood sweetheart. I got 3 children. I have this gorgeous, expensive condo in Connecticut. And it's blah, blah, blah." He even rented a Porsche to go to the reunion to impress everybody, make everybody think that it was his. You know that guy, right?
we
Well,
all know a Dennis.
I know. And so, but within me, I was feeling more than what he was saying, but I would also be hearing in my head BS, BS, BS. And I'm like, okay, so something's wrong here. So one weekend he invites us out, to my wife and I. His wife's not there. The kids aren't there. It's just him the whole weekend. We spend together, and the entire weekend was about him. I don't think he asked me one question about who I was. But that didn't bother me, because on the way home, I was crying. And my wife was like, "What is wrong with you?" And I'm like, I know his life is falling apart. I know his life is falling apart, and he's not telling anybody. He's hiding it from everybody. He's not talking to anybody about it. He has nobody to turn to because he's hiding it. And I don't know what to do. I don't know how to help him. And I cried out to God, "God, you've got to give me the ability to help this man and others like him. I don't know what to do. I'm an actor, but my heart is breaking for him. Give me the ability." Now, usually when you feel somebody is having a hard time or their lives are falling apart, you ask God to help them. I didn't do that. I asked God to give me the ability to help him. And I understand now, at 41 years later, why I did that, but I didn't understand that back then. And within a week's time, Samantha, Steven Spielberg and Cecil B. DeMille, for any of your listeners who are old enough to know who Cecil B. DeMille is, Parting of the Waters, Ten Commandments, that's Cecil B. DeMille, could not have created an epic movie like what I went through with paranormal and spiritual stuff that started happening to me within a week of that prayer. And the doors opened, and I'm reading people's minds. I'm touching people and healing them. I'm interpreting dreams. I'm knowing all this information pouring into my head. And then I even start trancing the guide. Joseph from Canaan is my guide. He's my main man. That's Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, Joseph. And it all came to me. A psychic told me I'm going to be a spiritual teacher in 7 years. My whole life is going to change, yada, 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 yada. all I knew is I wanted to be a professional singer, actor, and dancer. I wanted to be a star. I wanted to have a star on, Hollywood, street eventually, that guy. And no, I'm being told, no, I'm going to be a spiritual teacher. And now 41 years later, here I am on your show. And I would have never thought this was going to happen to me, but it was the greatest gift. So Dennis, who was my greatest enemy, became the catalyst for my greatest gifts. We're so close. I did go back and wind up helping him, and he changed his life completely. He's been a light for other people. He sends people, biggest fan, all of that. But that's what happened, and that's how it began. And that's the abridged version of the story.
Wow.
Beth and I have talked to a lot of people who had a similar childhood. There was a lot of abuse, there was neglect, there was bullying. And you can cross-reference that with the ACEs and the, adverse childhood, all the things that go on in life. So my expectation when you were speaking was that you were going to say, oh, I really honed my skills based on the way, because you get to read the room, you learn how to watch people's reactions. So the fact that you kind of put everything on hold, and then later on, right dead ass in your Saturn return, you have this big epiphany to say, how can I help people? And the floodgates open. So do you feel that the childhood stuff actually worked as a positive catalyst in who you became later on?
Denise, absolutely. I know. Now, here's what the listeners have to understand and people have to understand in their own journeys. Some people get the opportunity to have those gates open. I believe it can open for everybody. Everybody is meant to, in matter of fact, get to our levels of understanding and consciousness. That's our goal down here. It took all of that abuse, and I believe that I set that up for myself before I got here. I believe I spoke with soul. I believe I spoke with the soul of my mother, and I said, would you go down and be my mom in this life? But instead of doting on me and adoring me, abuse me, because I have a goal. If I go through enough pain, which, by the way, one of the things as souls we have to learn is we don't have to go through pain to grow. It is the most nonsensical and sensible understanding, and we keep repeating it over and over, which is what pushed us away and separated us from the God source to start with. Suffering does not guarantee growth. Yes, I did set that up for myself, and I asked mom to dote on me, and not to dote on me, to abuse me, and it got me to where I needed to be. And why? Why do we go through that suffering? Because we can relate to people, and people can understand us. Who started the AA, Alcoholics Anonymous?
Bill.
An alcoholic, somebody who stopped drinking, because then he understood it, and then people understand him when they were going for the meetings. It's like, so you can't reach people unless they know that, well, you have empathy, right? You talk about the empaths here, you care, and that you understand because you've been through some of the pain yourself. Yes, I absolutely believe all that pain. Now, the caveat to that is my soul has grown from that and has allowed me to be a great teacher. But the human part of me, little Vinny, is still in there. And that's what my book, and we'll talk about that in a while, but that's what my book is all about, is that little person and the human side of you that's gone through the pain and has the scars and can still get in the way, even though the higher consciousness of you is going down that positive path, and you're helping people and working with people. Man, oh man, that little itty bitty voice will come out no matter what, because there's still scars no matter what. So yes, in one aspect then, Denise, I know that led me to where I am today. Absolutely. I tell people like this, I say, Michelangelo, when he was sculpting statues, right? It was so difficult for him because he had this big piece of marble, and as he's chipping away, the shards are going everywhere. They're going in his eye. He had to wear a bandana. He got poked in the eye. He was breathing in the powder from all of that mess, chipping away, chipping away, chipping away. And everybody who's walking by or seeing him at all sees nothing but a mess, right? But then what happens at the end, and he polishes up the statue. It's the most magnificent, piece of art after going through all of that hard part in the beginning. So I kind of feel that when we come in, we kind of take on that role of chipping our lives away in order to bring out the best, the highest part of us. And I'm glad that I allowed that to happen, because that's the point. It will not happen automatically. You've got to allow it. And that selfless moment of me wanting to help Dennis so badly, and it was the most genuine thing. I never even prayed for myself while I was being tormented that much. It was such a deep prayer that, yes, it allowed that all to open up, because it was almost like, okay, finally, he's not just thinking about himself, so it's time. Let's my soul was like, he's ready. Let's get that going. And so then of course the universe helps once you get to that place, right? So, and that, what to me, I don't mean to go on, but that's what I believe was meant by the saying, God helps those who help themselves. It's like the universe, the moment you step into helping yourself like that to open up, you will get all the guidance that you need each step of the way. And that's exactly what happened to me. People coming in, advice, where to go, what to study. It was amazing. It was amazing.
The Buddhists teach there are 3 gates to enlightenment, and you can't bypass any of them. And it's the gate of compassion, the gate of suffering, and the gate of joy. I do think that there's a purpose to suffering, but what I see so much, and I think that your book touches upon, is people who get stuck in their suffering. And it's almost like they embrace it. It almost becomes a security blanket for them.
It does.
I call them the yeah buts. When you try to help someone to change and grow, and they're like, yeah, but.
Well, I went back to school, as you know, and I became a psychotherapist. So I worked with a lot of people who would get stuck in their depression or their anxiety because they were holding on to it. I would be sitting there going, wait a minute, you're telling me that you're still depressed and everything. And then when we go on with the conversation, you're telling me all these wonderful things that were happening to you all week long. Why are you still depressed over that? Oh, well, yeah, okay, they may have been really good, but it's their comfort zone, Samantha. It's what they know, and they're afraid to step out of it. They're afraid to step into happiness. Now, going back to what you said about the Buddha and the Buddhist saying, right, that there's 3 gates to go through, they were basing that on human experience. They were not basing that on spiritual experience and the higher realm. There are so many of those religions and spiritual beliefs that just focus on here and now. So the Buddha and all those followers, they went through hell, right? They went through hell. They had land, even the Dalai Lama, he had his land taken away from him, and all of that stuff was going on. But they had to figure out a way to be able to convince people that that's okay. You'll get through it, and then you grow. Well, you know what? As souls and spirits and humans who we are, yes, you throw lemons at us. We can make lemonade, but there's no guarantee to that, number one. And number two, I'm tired of lemons and lemonade. I don't want any more lemonade. I want some iced tea. So stop throwing lemons at me, or me stop manifesting lemons coming. So that's why I don't believe that the second gate of suffering is necessary. It's what we've already created here and what we have to do now. Yeah, you got to go through all your suffering. When I'm on my phone with the clients, there is not a one that I am talking to that says, oh, my life was absolutely wonderful. Everything was perfect in it. Mom and dad, they loved me. It was, it was like the Brady Bunch show. It was wonderful. We went on trips. Everything was not a one. Because then I'd be asking them, well, why are you on the phone with me? You don't need to know what's going on. You know what's going on. Your life is going to be wonderful tomorrow, too. No, They need to know if anything is going to change for them. They need to know. So everybody is going through that suffering without understanding they don't have to. And honestly, I sometimes get bothered by some of these spiritual, beliefs, because then people hold on to it now, especially if they're in the metaphysical realm. Well, the metaphysical, the New Age and the New Thought movement gave people a new excuse. They gave them new excuses. Before they were sinners, so they were holding on to those beliefs. We're all sinners. We're all specks on the earth that are worthless and useless. And we'll be lucky if we can get to heaven, if we can get through all of these things that we do wrong, right? They're constantly being told that. Now they step into the New Age movement, right? And now all we hear still that we're still imperfect, that you have an ego, and your ego is going to stop you from, Marianne Williamson in Course of Miracles wrote an entire chapter on how we're supposed to be like Jesus, and we're supposed to walk like Jesus, but chances are we're not going to be that way because the ego gets in the way. And then the Buddhas say, well, there is suffering, and you got to go through suffering. So how do we reach our highest level of divinity here and understand how magnificent we are when we're constantly being given reasons why we can't? And that there's going to be pain. Not everything has to be going to the dentist and getting root canal. That's my biggest belief. I hate pain and I hate suffering. And I hate that people believe that they have to go through that. So we've been through so much suffering. Why do you think we've been on this planet so long and we keep coming back to it? And what you're seeing right now and the way people are acting, they're imploding because we are unlimited energies. And every time we come back to this planet, we're limiting ourselves. So what happens when you take an atom and you keep compressing it? It's going to explode. That's what the atom bomb is all about. So what would happen when you keep taking these unlimited energies of us and you keep compressing it because we think we have to keep coming back here? We have to learn more. We have to learn more. We have to learn more, right? How long is it going to take before we learn? We're 11,000 years old and maybe even older than that. And this ancient wisdom is ancient because it's been around since the beginning of time, right? So it's these beliefs that we have to change. And it's the beliefs of understanding that we are magnificent and that we can change our experiences and that we don't have to buy into them. Like you were saying, we buy into them, we get stuck. But we have unfortunate information that still condones the stuckness. It excuses them to be stuck. So we need beliefs. Funny thing is I always get my clients asking me, how do you know you've evolved to a higher consciousness? And I said, that's an excellent question. So I asked them, I said, when you're watching the news and you hear that a perpetrator has gone in and hurt or killed somebody, where does your first sense of compassion go to? And what do you think everybody says?
The victims of the crime.
Exactly. And I said, but the victims, the one who were killed, they're now on the other side in the heavenly dimension. Who is hurting the most? The victim or the perpetrator?
Well, I would say the survivors of the victim and maybe then the perpetrator. My compassion would go to the perpetrator, but first it would go to the family members of the victims.
I understand that. Yes, they do get hurt. But in order to be a perpetrator, you have to be the most hurt. You have had to have an absolutely horrible past to want to hurt another human being. You had to have been tormented. Like I said, I could have been a perpetrator by all rights with the torment I went through. And thank God that if there were guidance on and hands on my shoulder to say, no, you really want to go this way, that I did go that way. But that was choice. I could have gone the other way because of the pain. And the pain causes you, and I always say to people, I use like a barometer, to the extent that somebody is acting out and lashes out at others, is the extent that they despise themselves, loathe themselves. You cannot hurt another person until you loathe yourself first. That's a Cain and Abel story. And so it's all about that. So the perpetrator has gone through the most pain. Yes, now in a physical realm, yes, if we're just physical, yes, of course, then you're thinking about the survivors and the hurt that they go through. It's even what Jesus, the whole reason, the story about Jesus crying when he went to see Lazarus after Lazarus died, he wasn't crying for Lazarus. He knew Lazarus was going to be alive again. Who was he crying for? He was crying for Lazarus's sisters who were in pain, right? Because so that compassion. So who is hurting the most is where a lot of compassion goes to anybody who wants to hurt somebody else. What the hell have you been through? And that's the part that we want to stop, right? Is stop the pain and help eliminate that or help people going through pain, because then that's going to stop the lashing out. And so that's what I think of when I'm thinking of a higher understanding, is you got to stop the pain. Remember, and now if we want to talk just on a human level, it's a whole nother conversation. But I know this is about a higher level of understanding your program, and people that are on the spiritual path, you want them. They always say, how do you get to that higher level? Well, understand the big picture, understand what's really going on here. And death, there is no death. There is no death. It's just the body that leaves, and this is an illusion to start with, right? But we separated so much that death becomes so painful. I have clients that will come to me in mediumship, right, because they lost a child or they lost a parent or a spouse, and they've missed them, but some of them feel like I have a better relationship with my son now than I did when he was alive. He comes around me all the time. I feel him all the time. I can even hear, and he has songs come to me. I get this energy when he's around me. So when parents can, or anybody can get to that point of understanding, truly understanding there is no death, they actually experience the spirit even more. Okay, we'll be together. You're together now, just in different form.
I think that there's a fine line between and this is just my personal aside, between using the circumstances that we were born into or experienced as an excuse not to own who we've become. Because there's a very fine line between the impact of childhood trauma or bullying or familial generational trauma and mental illness. And I think that that's a huge, huge difference. But in your book, because this is a thread in your book that I really, really enjoyed, is there's a realism. There is there's an accountability piece of you can be spiritual, but I think, again, my own opinion, a lot of people are using that as a way to portray who they think they're supposed to be, not who they're actually living as a human being.
Oh my gosh, that's the whole point of people. People don't believe what they think they believe. That's the whole layer of that. So they're acting. That's the defense mechanisms. And again, all the spiritual information. How many people? Oh my gosh, it's got to be billions at this point, a few billion people that know this information and have heard this information. It has to be beyond millions. The self-help and spiritual book publishing industry, including the affirmation decks and all the books that they sell, several years ago was $33 billion industry. $33 billion. So people are buying this stuff. They're going to the seminars. They're listening to your programs. All of this, they've got all of this information, but they're only doing it on one level, Denise. Like you're saying, they are not owning it, because beneath that level is what they're really believing about themselves. And that's what I deal with all the time. You're an accumulation of your entire lifetime. Whatever experiences you went through as a child are still within you now. And the problem is, that's where the law of attraction is connected to us, is in our unconscious minds. It's also another misnomer, another fallacy in the way we teach about the law of attraction, is we keep telling people your thoughts create, thoughts create, thoughts create, thoughts create, and manifest. No, they don't. It's not your thoughts. If it was your thought that created, and you hear some people doing take back, oh, I didn't mean to say that, take back. No, no. Your connection to the law of attraction is down in your unconscious mind. It's your beliefs that manifest. Thoughts influence the belief, so that's where the thoughts are, but they need to be taught. Just because you're thinking the right thing, if you are not believing the right thing, and those are two different things, what you think of is in your conscious left brain. What you believe is in your unconscious right brain, all the way down deep inside of you. So if you're walking around with a belief that you're not lovable all deep inside, and that's being hidden by the defense mechanism so you can function in life, that's what my book is about, so you can function in life, right? And you're just thinking that you're lovable, but down deep, you don't believe you're lovable. That's why you keep attracting relationships that aren't going to work, because that's what the energy that's going into the universe is what you believe, not what you're thinking and what you're saying. It's what you're believing. And so we get then all these people that are attempting to apply this information, and they keep saying it's not working. Actually, that was going to be the original title of my book, is God, It's Not Working, because that's what people wind up saying all the time. And believe it or not, my editor and my publisher said, we got to stay away from the title with God in it, because then people are going to think it's a religious book, and they're going to pick it up and read it and see that it's not religious, and then they're going to give you a bad remark, all this nonsense. But so that's why I came up with the secret that's holding you back. But people wind up saying it's not working, it's not working. And then they think the information is wrong. They think that there's no such thing as a law of attraction. It's like, no, there is. You manifest, but you have to believe in what you want. You have to believe you deserve it. You have to believe you're good enough. You have to believe you're lovable. You have to believe all those wonderful things that were given to us from creation. And if you don't believe it, you are not going to manifest it, no matter how many times you say it, no matter how many pictures you put up on your vision board. You know, I love that. And I'm sure you remember this part of my book where I liken your mind to a whiteboard. Think of a whiteboard, and on that whiteboard, you put every single negative feeling you've ever had about yourself. You just got to think about that. Oh, I thought I was stupid sometimes. And yeah, I wasn't good looking enough. Or yeah, I felt this. Yeah, I was unlovable at that moment. You write that all over the board. Now here comes the new age, new thought movement. Pretty pictures, pretty pictures, pretty pictures, affirmations, I'm good, all of that, don't sweat the small stuff, all of that nice stuff comes along. And so what happens is people are taking those pretty pictures and they're pasting them all over their whiteboard. Well, now they're believing, see, I say my affirmations every day. I have Post-it notes all over my mirror in the bathroom. So it's the first thing I see. I'm good. I'm lovable. I'm wonderful. All of that stuff. And they have it painted all over. And then they're still wondering why I have all these wonderful things that I'm doing. So why are my relationships sucking, Vinny? And why am I not getting the promotions at work? Well, my finances are so bad. Why? Why is that all happening? And I'm like, do me a favor. Take those little Post-it notes and pictures that you pasted on your board and take them off. What's left? They've not changed what's underneath the pictures. They've covered them up. And so, and you hear, how many times have you heard, don't worry about your past? Don't worry about your past. Don't think about your past. Keep moving forward. The whole new thought movement is based on that. Have a new thought. Okay, I can have all the new thoughts I want. If I don't change the old thoughts, nothing is going to happen in my favor. Nothing. And that's why I've written the book that I wrote, is so that people understand that and they get in there and start changing those. I have to talk with little Vinny almost every day, because as successful as I am, I wanted to be more so that I can get my word out even more so, right? But little Vinny keeps coming out and wanting to say, well, you're not good enough. You're not good enough. You're not meant to go any further. You're lucky you're as far as you are. And that's because he was hurt and tormented. So big Vincent, in my spiritual understanding, has to embrace him and retrain his thoughts, because the subconscious mind is automatic, right? And the thoughts beneath it that is saying I'm not good enough is training that automatically. And so it automatically can come out at times. And I have to listen for it. I have to train my ear to listen for that inner voice. And I do, I hear him. And I know when he comes out. And I talk to him, I embrace him, I change his thoughts, and it has changed. It is a work. It's a hard work. Actually, this is the greatest work that you can do, because the more you love yourself, your natural spirituality will come out of you. Your natural divineness will come out. The more you love yourself. In The Lion King, and I write this in my book, in the movie The Lion King, after Mufasa dies, Simba grows up, he's not seeing his father, he feels abandoned, he feels neglected, right? So he's run away, and all of a sudden, Rafiki comes up to him and starts and reintroduces him to his father. Look, he's inside of you. And then all of a sudden, the spirit comes out, and Mufasa talks to him. Father, he says, and Mufasa says to him, you have forgotten who I am because you have forgotten who you are. That movie was a metaphor and a metaphysical message for all the adults that were taking their children to see the movie. It's one of the most metaphysical ones. It's about our relationship with our God and the God source. And it's true. You will never see the God in you until you believe in you, until you understand who you really are. And then all of a sudden that door opens up. And that's what I did. I worked on that. And even with the gifts that I had, I still had to work on healing me.
What are some of your best techniques for doing that? I mean, we know therapy and journaling and inner child work, but what are some of the ones that have worked for you the best?
Oh, well, you know, it's funny that you say journaling, and all of that I use is inner child work. But what I love the most is, and I wrote it in the book, it's called the personification meditation. The personification meditation is you bring alive and you bring it back to a human form, anything inside of you, right? So I do this with your inner child. So let's say Vinny or little Samantha, okay, is like you would sit there and it would be like you're writing a script between adult Samantha and little Samantha. And you just start writing and you ask questions. You do a little, you quiet your mind first for about 5 to 10 minutes with the intention of communicating with your inner child, little Samantha, okay? And you sit there nice and quiet for a little bit. If your mind wanders, you tell it, shh, no, it's my time with little Samantha, me and Samantha. And now you start having a conversation with little Samantha, but you write it, right? Big Samantha, like you're writing a script. And you write a sentence to little Samantha. Little Samantha, are you there? And without thinking, you go right over to the left-hand column again. Now you write little Samantha and you write a response, whatever comes to your mind. Yes, I am. Maybe it's like this. Yes, I am. Back over, big Samantha. How are you feeling, honey? Go back over, little Samantha. I'm scared. Back over, big Samantha. Why are you scared, honey? Back over. Whatever comes up, people do this, and at the beginning, sometimes they get 4 lines out, sometimes they just get 4 pages out, they get into it so much. You do that on a daily basis and have a conversation with little Samantha and find out how she's feeling, you'll know exactly what you need to change. And here's the most amazing thing about that. People think that it's all in their imagination, they're making it up, but they don't understand when their little child comes out with a statement, why did I come up with that? Why did I just say that as little me? Wow. And you got to understand, you said that as little you because somewhere inside of you is that belief, is that understanding. I'm not good enough. I'm afraid. And it comes out all the time. I'm afraid you won't like me. What do you mean I won't like you? And you have a literal conversation back and forth. The inner child work that therapist did was peeling back the layers of an onion and all your experiences. I don't like, as a therapist, I never likened our work with my client as an onion. I said it was more like an artichoke. And they would ask, why an artichoke? All right, we can start by peeling some of the leaves back, but then I want to go right to the root and to core, the artichoke, the heart of the artichoke. And all you have to do is pick the leaves off and go right in there. Let's get down and dirty. And that, as a psychic, I was able to do that. So you want to get to the core. But as therapists, we had to always allow the client to move in that direction, right? That was going to be the best. And that's why therapy took so many years. I did that. And that's why I stopped being a psychotherapist, a licensed psychotherapist, and I do this work. When you're on the phone with me, it's like 12 years of therapy, because we get right to the core, because I can see the core and I present it to them. And when they see and remember, again, what they went through, and now they're remembering what they felt about themselves, they can see why things have happened in their adult life that's happened, why they brought in and attracted some hardships, because the little them is believing they deserve the hardships. I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable. I'm bad. That's most people's beliefs about their inner beliefs. Is that's why the world is going the way it's going right now, and people are acting that way, is because they were never, and I don't want to do parent bashing, but it's the negative messages they receive from their environment, from any adult, and from their siblings or whomever, whatever it was, their situation growing up. The message they received about themselves is what they harbor inside of them, and they're all negative. And since we are egocentric when we first come out and come into the world, we're thinking everything is about us. So therefore, we blame ourselves for everything too. Mommy and daddy are yelling at me. It's my fault. I was bad. Oh, mommy and daddy are yelling at my brother. Maybe it's my fault too. Did I do something wrong and get him in trouble? Or mommy and daddy are yelling at each other. Maybe it's about me. You know, they're getting a divorce. It's my fault. My daddy is getting sick and died. That's my fault. If I was lovable, he would still be around. That we don't have the wherewithal as children and a developed mind to understand that. It's not until later on that we understand it. So people would say, yeah, but I understand that now. But that doesn't matter. Little you is still in there. You got to understand that part. So even though you can logically explain your past, whether you had an alcoholic parent or, well, it's not my fault he beat me up, but little you does believe it was, you know? And if you really think about it, our souls come into this world with a knowledge already. And the knowledge is love. And when we don't experience love, something's wrong. Wait, then the human side comes in and says, wait, did I do something wrong? The funny thing is, children know how they're supposed to be treated, because research has shown over and over again, a child that has grown up in nothing but abuse becomes depressed, becomes anxious, right? And why? If that's the norm, and if it was the norm for everybody, we would be used to that. It's just like the old days. We get used to all we had. That's it, all right? But the conflict comes in within a child, and there's a deep understanding that I'm not supposed to be treated this way. So something is wrong. And then the human brain needs to answer that conflict. And the answer is, it's got to be me. And that's what people are walking around with. So I don't even remember what the original question was.
No, the original question was tips to really get to the core of your unconscious beliefs. And you talked about the personification meditation. So you answered it.
Personification meditation, and then walking around all the time listening. I have a 3A and a 3R process in there, right? The 3A is that if you get a negative feeling of any kind whatsoever, right, is to be able to be aware of that negativity, and that you said something or felt something negative, right? You're standing in line at the cashier, checking out at the grocery store, and you're behind somebody and it's taking the cashier's having a conversation with the person in front. Oh, yeah, really? Is this on sale right now? And you're getting angry or upset because you want to get home, right? So I say, first, be aware and stop yourself of that negative feeling, a fear, a doubt, anything. Stop, be aware. Then acknowledge right away that that is coming from your inner child and not the adult you, right? Because somehow that cashier is ignoring the fact that you're next in line, and it makes you feel unimportant in some way, because when you were a child and your brother and sister were, they had all the attention, and then you tried to say something at the table and you were completely ignored. That button is pushed, because why would you go to the place of that cashier is not even thinking about me? That's so inconsiderate. Might be a very friendly cashier, and she's going to talk with you as well. But just it has nothing to do with her ignoring you, but that's where you went, because your button was pushed. So you have to acknowledge it's always coming from there. And I'll give a statement that's really interesting. Everybody needs to hold on to. And then the third A is to affirm a positive and a truth. No, it's not the cashier is not caring about me. She's just friendly. She's really nice. Be patient. It has nothing to do with me, right? So you have to be aware of those things in practice. Here is a statement I tell people that they must always remember. And if you look out into the world, you'll understand what I mean by this. And I'm talking about those without any, not the outliers, not the ones that have any mental pathologies. I'm talking about the average person, right? And human. All adults in that realm are rational, reasonable, reliable, and stable. All adults are. But all children are not. So therefore, if an adult acts unreasonably, irrationally, unstable, lashes out, that is not the adult in them that's doing that. It's the child within them that's doing that. And if you look today, the way people are lashing out, they all look like they're having temper tantrums. That's a child within them. That's not the adult within them. So therefore, any time that you are feeling that negative, you are feeling that frustration, you are feeling that doubt, that is actually the child within you that is speaking and influencing you. And so you want to connect the dots. So the more you keep doing that, the more you take control, and you're reprogramming that child's mind inside of you. And so that the child can slow down and stop saying, it's me, it's all about me, it's my fault, nobody cares about me. And then they won't lash out the same way. You won't be upset the same way. So that's the process. That's only one of the other techniques in my book, but I really get into, you must be talking with your inner child on a daily basis.
You've made a really good point that it's never too late. And that's a beautiful, again, theme throughout your book, is that you're never too old. You're never too young. You may be 22 and doing this work. You may be 82 and doing this work. But what it comes down to is you're shifting your vibration. You're shifting what you're able to impact other people, because the world is a mess right now. That's a given. And it's not just here in the States, it's globally. The world is upset. She's angry, and she's saying, come on, people, we've got to pull together. And we all agree with that. But what we can control and what we can work on is, how can I help myself? How can I change my vibration to cause a residual impact to help other people step in and feel better about themselves? Because that truly feels like the answer. The other aspect that I would just love to add one more little part is, when you were talking about the importance of belief and manifesting, I think it's, and your inner child, when you combine those two together, it's also, for me and for many folks I speak with, to address the emotions involved behind it as well. That there's always a deep emotional core that connects with that belief. So you may believe it, I deserve this, I'm ready. But if you haven't dealt with that little kid emotion of sadness or fear or anger or worthy, whatever it might be. So your work, your book, the secret that's holding you back, I think, is incredibly insightful for the times that the world is going into, and could be a real resource for people to finally do this work or to take their work to the next level.
Thank you so much for saying that. And yes, that's the reason why I wrote it, because I truly believe that people can go to the next level. What's interesting, and I'm not sure if I wrote this in there, but Neil Donald Walsh's Conversations with God, all his Conversations with God books, I love. And in his first book, I remember a specific thing that he says, God says to him. God says, I wish you were all truly selfish down there. And not by the selfish that we label as selfish. He says, because if you were selfish, you would be doing everything to feel good about yourself, but you would automatically extend that out onto helping others because of how good that feels too. And truly, truly, you, me, Samantha, the three of us, I know in my heart the motivation, the true motivation behind your work and my work is because it makes us feel good that we're doing something good. And that's the reason for ego. That's why God gave us ego, is to feel good about good things we've done. Without that, it would be meaningless. And I have a really hard time with the concept of letting that all go. And we're not supposed to be truly worried about our own desires. Desire leads to suffering. That's a saying in Buddhism. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Not getting your dream leads to suffering. That's what leads to suffering. Not going after your desires leads to suffering and hurt and pain. But being able to go after them and know that you can, being able to change your life and know that you can, being able to have all the tools here that we need to change our lives, we have that. And going after it is the gift. It's at the end of all of this, we're going to be asked, so what did you learn about yourself? And those who said, well, I got everything I wanted, okay, or have not learned as much as those who say, I can get everything I want. There's a difference. I got everything I wanted. They don't talk about how they did that. And they don't learn that their capabilities as unlimited beings is what was caused that. Whereas the others who say, oh, I know I can. That's the whole reason for going after a dream, is to find out that you can get it, not to get the dream, because once you get the dream, it's like, oh, okay. So now that I got this and I'm going after my goals, I know that I can go after anything I want then. Right? So it's not the end result that matters as much as the journey you took to get there. And so we have that capacity here. And then when you learn that about yourself, you want to share that with everybody else. Think about the time that you saw a movie and you were alone and you fell in love with it. Oh my God, it was amazing. What do you do automatically? What do you do automatically? You tell everybody about the movie. You tell them you got to go see it. Maybe you call up your friends and said, oh my gosh, I just saw the most incredible movie. You got to go see it. And tell me when you go, I want to go with you. How many times have we done that where we've seen a movie all over again? I'm doing that right now. My brother is visiting me and my sister-in-law, right? And I happen to love the television series Ted Lasso and Young Sheldon. There were so many of them that we really loved, right? So they never saw them. And I said, you got to watch them. And we're watching the reruns again with them. We've seen it already, but we're watching it with them because we're enjoying, they're laughing at it. We keep looking at them and they're laughing and we're like, oh my God, that's great. Why do we do that? Because it feels so good to share something you know is good with somebody else. So if we were really selfish, we'd be doing that with everybody, but you can't do it with anybody until you start with yourself, like you said, Denise. You have to go within. That is the healing of the world. It has nothing to do. We're spending all of these times forming these groups and these coalitions. And yes, they're okay. They're fine. They're Band-Aids. They're band-aids. They're not always getting to the core because each individual is not doing their own healing work. Maybe if I just pull together, we'll form a force, and all of us will go and we'll change something. Okay. So what happened to equal rights? That was changed a long time ago. There's no equal rights still. Not for everybody. All right. There's not. So what happened to the equal rights movement that we had? So we blind ourselves with these so-called advances. As soon as we see technology and the advancement in technology, we think we've advanced. We've only advanced intellectually, and that has nothing to do with spirituality. So yes, we can change it, and we can change it now. Matter of fact, anybody who's listening right now has already started changing because they're listening.
Yeah, I could not agree more. Well, the book is called The Secret That's Holding You Back. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing it with us. Your website is vincentgenna.com. Do you prefer that people connect with you through your website, or are you on social media?
I'm on all social media. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. A lot of people go through Facebook. A matter of fact, I have formed a Facebook group for The Secret That's Holding You Back, and people who read the book have gone there, and I will communicate with you. Like, you share the experiences you've had after reading the book. People have done that. I will communicate with them when they do write on there. People email me and I write back to them. So the best way to connect with all of that is through my website, The Secret That's Holding You Back. And yes, I have a podcast, The Genna Effect. Also, that's on YouTube channel, The Adventures of a Psychic Therapist, or just type in Vincent Genna. You'll find that with Genna. And so, yes, that's that. You communicate with me, I'll communicate back for sure.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh. Thank you guys. And thank you so much for allowing me to go on. And, I've got verbal diarrhea. I mean, I just can't stop talking. That's why I got in trouble in school.
Denise, were you going to say something?
No, just thank you very much for sharing and for lighting the way for so many people. It's greatly appreciated.
And I appreciate you both for being the lighthouses to get this information out into the world and be a big giant beacon.
Okay. Well, thank you. And thank you everyone for listening. Don't forget to check out The Secret That's Holding You Back. We'll be back with you next week. In the meantime, please remember to show up, do great work, and share your light.